Folks, you're with Tacitus today. Tacitus Day, your pushback channel. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about an essay I did a few days ago, which looked at the contenders for the leadership of the British Conservative Party. This is the party of Winston Churchill, Margaret Thatcher, and Sir Robert Peel, and so on. Now, two of the four contenders, one seems like a limp-wristed simp, a white guy, and two of the contenders of the leadership are black. Now, one of them is certainly no great intellectual heavyweight, and he's got I think a diploma in hotel management or something. And again, he was affirmative actioned into Parliament, into a very safe electoral district. You know, he didn't have to go to a marginal district and talk policy and convince the voters to vote for him. He was just shoehorned into that by the party machine, as indeed was, in my opinion, Kemi Badenoch. Now, Kemi Badenoch's a black Nigerian lady, and her mother, heavily pregnant, arrived in England to give birth to a child, which gave citizenship birthright. And then the mother, shortly after having given birth, then jumped back onto the plane and went back to Nigeria. Now, why that should qualify someone for British citizenship is quite beyond me. Her family was, in Nigerian terms, reasonably well-to-do, and they travelled around, and she went to expensive, Kemi Badenoch, that is, went to expensive private schools, and you can tell by the way she talked, she didn't. She was given an upper class education, so Western education. So, and then at the age of, I think it was 16 or so, Kemi comes to live in England. In fact, still in the education system at that point. Comes back to live in England, and for the first time. So I don't think she'd seen England at all or Britain at all until she came along as a 16-year-old. So you'd hardly say she's got roots into the society. Now, I believe that the assumption was that when voting for Parliament and prime ministers and president, all that sort of stuff, were that nobody would vote for somebody unless they were a local. So you kind of didn't need to insist that somebody needed to be local. In the US, the president, for example, has to be born in the United States. I think we need to go beyond that in the Western world now today, particularly given that it takes, even for people from societies that aren't far removed from, say rural Greeks, for example, it still takes them 3 generations to integrate. So at minimum, you have to have one great grandparent who's locally born and all the rest locally born from then on in. So you need, I think it's essential that all Western countries should insist that all their political leaders, not simply prime ministers or presidents, by the way, but parliamentarians, need to have long-term roots in the society. Now, that doesn't mean that the local people with local roots won't sell their country out. Look at how eagerly Tony Blair in the UK, or David Cameron, or Theresa May, or these people, how eagerly they sold out their fellow British citizens. I mean, they couldn't. Blair and Cameron were gagging to sell out their local citizens and throw them under the globalist bus. So that's not a guarantee of it. But if we look at, say, the behaviour of Rishi Sunak, the installed globalist stooge Indian Prime Minister, I mean, he didn't even have a second thought. I mean, he couldn't sign on to the globalist project quick enough, for goodness sakes. So my feeling is that people holding political office of any persuasion must be not only born in the country, but again, have long-standing roots. That's not a solid or guaranteed protection. As I mentioned, Blair and Cameron were quite happy to sell Britain out, but I think that should be a requirement. Now, in terms of, I've got a few messages suggesting, they haven't called me a racist outright or a xenophobe or something, but rather have come from the position of Kemi Badenoch has good centre-right views, solid centre-right views, and therefore should be judged on her expressed views. And by the way, she has and has been prepared in Parliament to do battle with the globalist leftists, and there's been exchanges where they called each other names and so on. But nonetheless, let's have a look at why do I think that in white Britain there should be that the leaders should be white and British. That's hardly a radical position to take, but today people can accuse you of the most horrendous. You're literally Hitler and all this sort of stuff. But coming back to Kemi Badenoch, I got nothing against Kemi Badenoch, by the way. I'm sure she's a nice person. Kemi was gifted under affirmative action, was gifted a safe Conservative seat in a safe Conservative district, one where she needs to do no work to maintain, where that even when the Conservatives were obliterated in the polls, which they were recently, Kemi still had a very safe seat and came in with a nice majority. So she's in a very comfortable position. Now, the party, the Conservative Party machine, chose Kemi and gifted her that seat. It's affirmative action thing. She's black, she's female. They gifted that to her. Could she have won that under any form of merit? Well, absolutely not. Could she have gone into a marginal area, an electoral district, a marginal district, and could she have got out there as the black chick and said, these are my policies, I believe this, that, and turned the seat around and won it? Not a chance, not a snowball's chance. There is no way she could have done that. She's very unimpressive to look at, and if you see her walking around and so on, very unimpressive. So there's no way she could have won that through persuasion or policy or presentation or anything. So we're looking at an affirmative action creature, a 100% affirmative action creature, who was gifted all of these things through affirmative action. None of it she has earned, none of it. Even the citizenship was by virtue, I would argue, of her family fiddling the system by just a heavily pregnant mother deciding to give birth in England and that being allowed. That sort of thing shouldn't be allowed. But nonetheless, so everything Kemi has is Kemi Badenoch. This is everything Kemi has: British citizenship, the seat in the safe seat in Parliament. I mean, people will kill to get a safe seat, and they give it to this unknown black chick from Nigeria with no achievements or accomplishments to point to. I mean, you're kidding me, right? But these Conservatives wanted black chicks in a wing. We're not racist. Look, and they gave her this safe seat and gifted it to her on a platter, something she could never have won. And so Kemi wouldn't exist in the real world without the affirmative action stuff. She wouldn't even exist, wouldn't even be on the radar, and that's my concern. Now, if she'd been someone that had worked her way up and had taken over, gone into a marginal seat and got up there and talked policy and did the heavy lifting on that sort of stuff and won the seat over and won over the members in the electorate that she should be chosen as the member, then won over the voters and that sort of thing. Well, fine, then I don't mind. She's done the hard work. Instead, she's done none of that. So as an affirmative action protected species, what right or entitlement and what has she achieved or accomplished will justify her for that role? Same for James Cleverly, by the way. Out of the four contenders, and I mentioned this in the previous video, there's only one who's none of them are impressive, incidentally, in my view. That's my opinion. The guy, there was one guy, and I can't remember his name now, but he served in the military, and I think when you serve your country at the front line, that is, getting shot at and everything, and you put your life on the line for your country, that gives you a special credential, in my view, a commitment that you demonstrating your commitment to your country, and only on that basis would I prefer him, but only on that. Otherwise is unimpressive in my view. But coming back to Kemi Badenoch, I don't care. Just sort of digressing a little bit. I spent many years traveling the world doing business with people of every color and every background and every religion and every culture. And one thing you learn when you're being paid to do a job, one thing you learn is you can't look at people on the basis of culture, race. That you can't. You have to look at what is the objective businesses with the objective, of course. What is the objective? So you don't judge people. You can't afford to, and that's not what you're paid to do. So you have to deal with and show absolute respect to their culture and their and people that had been to Mecca, for example. I would, in deference of their journey to Mecca, I would call them Haji and the Hajj in Mecca, and show them as much respect and to honour them as much as I could. Bear in mind, I'm a Christian, and Bear and I have been in Muslim societies where they won't touch. They're so anti-Christian that they put gloves on before they'll come anywhere near you. So these are the. So I've got no concern with Kemi being black or the dreads. I don't care. And again, I've been around the world a million times and done business everywhere. So it's that Kemi is an affirmative action product. Has only the scam of being being born in Britain, this sort of thing, and not having long-standing roots in the country. And to have long-standing roots in Britain, you have to be white. And again, at minimum, one great-grandparent born in Britain and living in Britain. The idea you might be born there and you live somewhere else. No. And the party machine, the days when the party machine would we live in times when the political party machine, Conservative Party in this case, will go out of their way to pick brown and black people and women and lesbians and trans people, just to show. And remember, the Conservative Party machine is completely globalist controlled. So, and they're doing that just to show how progressive they are in a real world, and not a delusional world that we have now. But in a real world, those people would never get selected. And so coming back to Kemi Badenoch, she doesn't deserve to be there, in my view. You've been fantastic today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.